Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé F1 podcast, number 834. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camber. You know what we do on race weekends. Yes, you do.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on,
That's exactly what we do on race weekends. Before doing that, of course, I have to introduce my co-host. And you know what that means, folks.
Wrecked from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
Paul, how you doing?
I'm good. Yep.
What is
Back
going
home
on?
again.
You have big news for anyone that didn't see the Twitter post, didn't see me over shilling for you guys on Facebook. The Heart of Racing. So for those of you that are new to the podcast, this is the very first episode. Paul is the sporting manager for the Heart of Racing Aston Martin team number 23 and 27 car in IMSA. But Paul, huge news. The dream has become a reality.
It has.
Tell the folks where you're going.
Going to Le Mans, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, this year.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. But it's I get goosebumps just thinking about it. We don't have long to go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff to do. But yeah, someone pulled out of Le Mans and we took their entry and had to scramble and send Ian and Alex over to Spa to go race in the next WEC race, which they did.
And that was this weekend.
That was this weekend. So that they literally had never tested the car, never even seen the car. They jumped in it. It's a different car than the one we ran in IMSA. It's got more power, more downforce, different tire, no ABS. So there's a lot of differences that they had to get used to. But I think they did a great job. And in conjunction with ProDrive, who helped run the manufacturer program for Aston Martin, got the car on the grid, and they did a fine job. They came P7, which I thought was really good, considering they're up against people that have been running the past couple of years. So still a lot to learn, still a lot of things to figure out. But Le Mans, baby, I'm just so psyched about it. It's crazy.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Fortunately or unfortunately, you don't even have a lot of time to think about it because we're doing so many other things. So I just got back from New Orleans where I was. We were running the GT4 program with 3 cars while the Spa event was going on. So Ian was over there, I was over here. So there was a lot going on, and at the New Orleans track, we got another win. So we came back pretty happy. So we're on a bit of a roll that I'm enjoying quite now. Actually, it's been a good week.
Yeah, it has. So was Ian over at Spa? Was it basically all about data harvest off of this new car? Just trying to get as much information on this new car as you possibly can.
Yeah, and Spa is a good track. It's a big high-speed track, so there's a lot of stuff that's similarities between that and Le Mans. So the 3 drivers that are going to drive at Le Mans, that's the rules of the same 3 drivers. So they have to get to know each other. We have a new driver, Daniel. He's an Italian kid that Ian's been looking at for a while and picked him up to join the WEC team, so those 3 will be driving together the whole year.
So what 3 drivers will you have at Spa?
So at Spa was Ian, Daniel, who's the Italian kid, and Alex, and they're the 3 drivers that will drive the whole year.
Okay. So Ian, Daniel, and Alex.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the group 4 WEC for this year. Yeah, for Le Mans. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so that's a lot to do. But it's data harvest. The drivers, and we're going to learn a lot because unfortunately, because we've got so much going on, we couldn't get to the Spa race. So I said, ProDrive and Aston Martin helped us out a lot in running the car, and we'll gradually bring a lot of our own people over as the season goes on. The transition, so to speak, from the other team that was in. It was entered, so Le Mans going to be baptism by fire.
No doubt. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think all the listeners and viewers are expecting copious amounts of Le Mans pictures from you once you get there.
Oh yeah, I'll do my best. But quite honestly, I'm going to be like on heightened alert to learn.
You're going to be a little busy.
Yeah, but I'll do my best. But hopefully, it gives people even more reason to stay up through the night and watch what is the 100th Le Mans, which is
Well,
Yeah,
what a
it's going
Le
to be
Mans to
crazy.
actually go to for your first one.
Exactly, right?
You know, the
Yeah.
100th. That's
Yeah, I mean, that was
crazy.
our goal to get there. We didn't get an entry, and so all of a sudden be thrown into it is, yeah, exciting and completely frightening at the same time. But we'll get there.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
we've we've got a lot of experience. We've got a lot of good people on the team, and there's a lot of good people over there. They're helping us out. So you never know what can happen, but it's we're not new, but this
Well,
is our
Ian's
new
been there
rodeo.
before.
Ian has been there. He's been on the podium there before also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex
Yeah.
has never been there before, and I don't
Yeah.
think Daniel is either. So
Yeah.
yeah, but luckily there's a pre-weekend test. So at least a little different from Spa where you just okay, practice one, everybody.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some good seat time to kind of get everything going a
Yeah.
little bit before the race. But yeah, there'll be a lot to learn. Hopefully we don't make too many mistakes.
Oh, that's great.
Hmm.
Well, congratulations on that. That's awesome. I'm
Thank you.
excited for you.
Yeah.
Because I always said, people say, well, you're a big F1 fanatic. What's the one race you want to go to of all the races, and they're expecting me to say Monaco
Yeah.
or Spa, which
Monza. Yeah. Yeah,
Spa
Spa's a
would be
big one.
high on my list
Hmm.
because I just love that track. But they're always stunned when I say Le Mans.
Yeah.
Because it's not F1, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's exciting. Well, somehow in between this hectic week, Paul, you
Hmm.
managed to get the Azerbaijan Grand Prix watched, which is pretty
Yes.
impressive.
Thank you.
So I thought we might just tap into that
Yeah.
reservoir of racing knowledge of
I got to
yours.
watch the ESPN feed this time, so a little different. Seems I was in
Yeah,
a hotel room getting up at 5 in the morning. Um,
right.
I'm pretty tired right now actually because I was
Yeah.
watching.
Well,
So I was watching Spa wet
yeah.
races with our team, and I was also watching F1, and then I had to get up and then go run our own
Race
team at
yourself. Yeah.
NOLA. So yeah.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get to see the Sky broadcast.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And did you scan the QR code? Because, nobody over here in the States that I know of is a Sky Glass or Sky
I
QR
did start
holder.
pressing the red button, but that
Did you?
didn't do
Yeah,
anything
didn't do
either. Yeah.
anything either. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah,
what's
because I
going on
think
there?
I sent a comment to you about that. It's like,
Yeah.
isn't it time with all the investment US is made in F1, and F1 is making an F1 that maybe, just maybe, there might be a little American, you know, presentation, even if it's
Oh.
before the race, not necessarily during
Well,
it,
they
but
do have no, ESPN does now have this sort of pre-race show
okay.
by three people, and don't get mad at me, folks, because I don't just sit around and watch ESPN. I don't know. It's like three people that are sportscasters, which is part for
Oh,
the course because you've got just sports fans now that love F1, and then you have sportscasters that were probably calling hockey and
yeah.
NCAA basketball 2 weeks ago, and now they're commenting on Formula One in course.
Oh, okay. So nothing
Um,
to actually
no,
tune
we're not
into then.
unpacking.
Yeah,
It's
we need
all.
match it's still free, man. He's that
I
so yeah.
know.
But
It goes along. It's much of my criticism about all media these days is that it's just all personality and no character.
mm, yeah, or
And the
depth of
one,
knowledge. Yeah.
yeah, the one thing I don't really need heaping loads of is personality. I'd rather have more character, more knowledge, and insight
Yeah.
about the sport than
Absolutely. That's it,
just
and it deserves it,
bombastic
right?
personality.
It
Yes, it
it
deserves
deserves
it.
it. And honestly, I know it's American, it's not America's sport, but there's a lot of Americans who have been in Formula One, who are in Formula One,
Yes.
who have the knowledge and experience, who would bring a lot to the table in a broadcast situation. So
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
disappointing. Yeah.
For sure, it is disappointing.
Mm.
All right, let's cover this race. Let's just get the big talking points out of the way first on our formation lap. Let's set the grid here. As I said in my review of the sprint race, I'm not a fan.
No.
And I know this is going to sound like old curmudgeon podcast. I don't mean it to, but I wasn't blown away by anything about this changed weekend, unfortunately, and I apologize for that. For me, normally when Formula One makes big sort of format changes to, like when they went to a new qualifying format or they added a session or whatever. Typically, those kind of things are all voted on and then instituted the following season, right? But in a 3-week gap here, they voted, approved, and ushered in and said, hey, guess what? We reduced the free practice sessions by half an hour, so there's only a couple hours. We're going to put a sprint race in place of the 3rd practice session. And by the way, now on the 6 sprint race weekends, we're just going to do away with the 2nd practice session. Because at the end of the day, we don't really even need them. The practice sessions are pointless. And I'm sorry that for the last several decades, you've been watching all those free practice sessions because we really don't need them, right?
Yeah.
So
Wow,
to
teams don't
me,
need that.
it devalues what the original sessions represented by suggesting they were pointless and could easily be dropped, making room for these new baubles and making the remaining races that are still the traditional format outside of these 6 sprint, it makes them seem somewhat pointless too. So now we're done with the first sprint race. We're going to go back and now watch 3 practice sessions. I mean, I don't know. Why would I watch practice? They just ditched them and gave me qualifying in a sprint race, and now I got to go watch. Don't get me started.
I don't even know how the teams.
I can't believe they
do it. I can't believe they voted for it.
I can't.
I think they're being coerced for spice up the show. Come on, we're on a roll, people.
Yeah,
Yep. People are gonna love it. You think you got people watching now? It's gonna double if we double the races on a weekend. But just logistically, technically, I don't know how the F1 teams do it. I know we scramble on an IMSA weekend if we can get 3 practice sessions in. You're always learning. You're always trying something. There's always something to gain, and I think throwing just qualifying race on a weekend is really missing the point of what Formula One is. It's making it a very superficial sport.
Exactly.
Whereas it's the depth of technology, it's the depth of how these teams develop the car over a race weekend. It's who's in trouble, what's going on. Are they really showing their pace? It's like, they put this new innovation on the car. What does that mean? This is the depth of Formula One, and that's what Drive to Survive kind of opened the doors to people on what makes Formula One magical.
It is.
But when you then just show race after race, and we're not going to, none of this stuff, we're just going to go, that's not 100% Formula One. We know Formula One isn't, NASCAR where there's 5 passes a race. It's just not that kind of sport. It's a bit slower, sure, in action, but it's got so much depth to it, and there's so many layers to it, which, as I said, it's what Drive to Survive, I think, opened up personalities, this and that. But if you're just throwing this stuff at people, they're really missing the point and the allure, I feel.
It's exactly right. I wrote this on the Sprint Race Review. I said that feeling like qualifying is such a great session and people really love qualifying, so let's just give them twice as much. And feeling that the race is fun and people really like to watch the Formula One, because let's just give them 2 races over a weekend. You're, as you point out, you're missing the point. You're devaluing the entire series.
It takes away.
You may not feel like you are, but you are, because the beauty of free practice, not everybody, a lot of teams this weekend, Mercedes being one of them, bemoan the fact that they only had 1 practice session on Friday, never got to run long run paces, and got the setups wrong, i.e. Hulkenberg had to change his setup, start from the pit lane. A lot of teams had to just guess. And everyone would say in the paddock, and maybe even Stefano would say, we'll see, it's that unknown which spices up the show. It really doesn't. It just means you've got cars running out of position, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It devalues the sport, because the practice session, Paul, is if you've got a commentary crew worth their salt, that practice session, all 3 of them, is a time to really unpack the sport.
Yeah,
and to
absolutely.
watch the long run and short run paces, quality paces, the tire degradation, tire wear rates, setup changes, aero changes. You look for different programs. They can
Yeah,
interview different people. This is
yeah,
when you learn about the sport. And Formula One, I hate to tell newer friends this, but Formula One is a sport that requires some intellectual curiosity. It
yeah.
just
It is,
does.
and the practice we like it because it inspires a conversation, not necessarily even about that practice, but
That's
about
right.
something we've seen in that practice, and you can go back to a history of how this part was developed or where this team are going in the future. It's
That's right.
yeah, that's why we love it, you know, and
Yeah.
we like different sports for different reasons.
Yeah.
We like different food for different reasons. I love a curry, but I'm not going to eat it for breakfast and lunch every day. It'll kind of take the event out of it, you
Yeah.
know,
It
right? It
does.
takes the specialness away,
It totally
and
does. It's too much
and
of a good thing, if
and
you
I
will.
think
But
yeah, and I think it's yeah. I mean, yeah. Do you want a Super Bowl every week?
no,
Then which
of course
Super
not.
Bowl is special? And none of them.
Which
You know?
which is kind of the criticism that a lot of the old school guys that team owners were making a few years ago about having 23 races.
Same thing. Same
It's the
thing.
same thing. We had
Yeah.
16, 18 races. That's enough.
Yeah.
It makes each race more special, each race weekend more valuable,
Right.
and the money payout and the points payouts more critical, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so
It even happened at Indy.
yeah,
Once
that's right.
Indy opened itself up to every single body can drive on Indy and everyone can race on Indy, you know, I mean, the Indy 500 is still a special race, but, and I knew that, I mean, it was a risk they took, and I think they knew probably it would happen, but in the end, it's probably better for the track and everything that they do more than just one race a year.
Yeah, right.
But it has taken some of the special and uniqueness and only these cars ever race here kind of stuff. It just took a little shine off of that. So yeah, it's all of this stuff adds up to
It does.
yeah,
You know, you only pay points in the first eight positions, so the top four teams win everything,
yeah,
every sprint race. That's how that's going to work, right?
yeah.
Is it
Plus,
okay?
if
Well,
who do you want to do you want people to try and catch Red Bull? They're not going to do it by having to be in a race mode all the time.
wouldn't do that.
And
And
because
if
with band testing,
right,
there's no way these
right.
teams it's going to hold back the development of the other cars that are trying to catch up to Red
Right.
Bull.
And Paul, if you were the head of Alfa Romeo or Williams, and on the sprint races they only pay out points the first eight positions,
Hmm.
why would you even bother running and taking the risk not only to human life, but to risk to the car, to damage, the cost of
Yeah.
running? What is the point? It has
Honestly, if
no
I was
impact on how you grid up on Sunday.
no, if I was them, I would just treat it like a test session. Just come in and out the pits and
Yeah.
do whatever you want to do and ignore it. But there's probably something in the background telling them you can't do that. But
Yeah,
if
right.
I was those teams, that's exactly what I would be doing.
I just don't see what's the compelling reason for Williams to run and take
Yeah.
that risk other than maybe they've got to carve out of some money that they're paying the teams for participation in. I don't know, but the
Yeah.
whole thing is just devaluing. I feel like right now Formula 1 is being absolutely fleeced and they're trying to milk every single dollar. Look at ticket prices, look at the sprint races, and they're all thinking this is going to really be compelling
Yeah.
for this wave of new fans. But I got news for you. I'm not sure that these fans will become more sticky to F1 by adding sprint qualifying and sprint races, if I'm honest.
Right.
You're going to
Right.
lose a majority of those new fans, and I hate to tell F1 that over time. And NASCAR in the late '90s, early 2000s versus now should tell you that
That should
is
absolutely
inevitable.
that is an absolute blueprint for
Exactly,
disaster, right?
exactly.
They kept
NASCAR
trying
should
to
be it.
reinvent, try and spice it up, trying to
Yep.
create false things in the races to spice up the show, and they didn't just lose new fans, they didn't get new fans, but they
Right.
lost older fans who were like, I don't even know what this sport is
I
anymore.
don't watch anymore. I used to
Yeah,
watch.
I don't
I
either.
don't.
I used to like NASCAR, but
I
I
did
don't
too.
really watch
I
it
don't
either.
watch it
Well,
anymore. Haven't watched it in years and years. I
yeah,
have no interest to. But the point is, but this is the case study, and Formula One is going down this same route by
hmm
trying to manipulate and make spice up to just stop, and this is my huge criticism about Formula One, and not just in recent years. This has been my criticism for many years, is that Formula One is there's they always choose pragmatism over prudence. Always. They always, well, we're very pragmatic. Yeah, I can tell because every time you go to solve one thing, you cause three other things.
Yeah.
That's your pragmatism at work, folks. Measure twice, cut once, right? And so you take Ross Brawn. There was a good question on our website about these cars at Baku seemed like they couldn't really follow each other as much as they could last year, right? Well, yes, because Ross Brawn developed the cars with the regulations last year, we could follow closer. But because of the porpoising, and instead of dealing with that or telling teams to get their crap together in their aero department, no, they raised the car's heights so that Mercedes and others wouldn't porpoise as much. But when you raise the height of the car, now they're more impacted by aero wash, and now we're getting back to, this is just pragmatism at work. So I just hope that they figure this stuff out and they quit monkeying around with this sport because it's they're going to destroy it.
Yeah,
sure
they'll lose everything they gained and more, mate.
They will. Yeah, they will. Not only will they lose all the Drive Survive fans, but they're going to start losing a lot of veteran fans that have been watching forever.
Yep, they'd be better spent looking behind the scenes during a weekend because that's what, as I say, that's what opened up the sport to people that didn't know anything about it, because the people that didn't know anything about it saw Formula One, they saw cars running around the track and they were like, oh. But once they got to understand what was actually going to putting those cars running around track, it was interesting. So that's what they need to focus on, not.
I agree.
Yeah.
And they would be better off, Paul, to take that time and attention and money and put it behind trying to big up F2 and F3. Support races and get fans invested in those series because they're like F1. That's where F1 drivers come from.
Yeah, so when I was a kid,
them up.
I literally knew every single Formula 3 driver on the grid.
Yeah.
Because I knew where they were going, and I was like, "Oh man, this guy, is he going to go to Formula One next year? Is he?"
Right.
But nowadays, probably most people don't even know that ladder exists. Some name just appears up, like Sargent just appears on the grid. Oh, what did he do?
Right.
I heard
they could do all kinds of fun stuff with that.
Yeah, I heard one non-F1 podcast, one that's based in St. Louis. Actually, they're talking falsely about how someone becomes an F1 driver. They said, yeah, they just test them all on the sim, and then the best guy on the sim gets a ride in Formula One. Like, wow, this is someone that is watching Formula One. They obviously have no idea how people get to Formula One and how much they give up to get there and how much work it takes. I mean, no, me being an ex-driver, I say ex, but I knew how hard it was to even get a shot at anything and try and climb up that ladder. And so that, absolutely, to your point, if they focus on that, that is a story and a very interesting story unto itself.
It is, yeah. You could take the F2 series, F3 series, really big it up. You could do some joint fun events pair up a Formula One driver with an F2 driver, to do some fun karting action with, and so you'd have 20 karts out there. It would be a lot of fun just to have some fun, interaction between F1 drivers and the Formula 2 drivers. And, there's all kinds of things you could do that would be fun for people attending a race over a race weekend,
Right.
So anyway, let's jump into the other big incident, the pit lane incident.
Woo!
That was... What the hell? That was a little crazy, was it not?
It was a little crazy, but I'm not sure how or why it happened. But
I'm not sure. Well, it's the elephant in the room. Everybody was pretty confused. I'm not quite sure. They got all of the journalists and photographers basically at pit entry, kind of behind these rails, these stanchions, and somebody at the FIA or marshals or somebody allowed them all to come into the pit. And unfortunately, Ocon hadn't made his pit stop yet, and he waited to the very last lap, which is his right to do. And to come in and make that. And he came flying in, and as I tweeted and put on TikTok, I said, why does F1 look like a rally race, or a rally race? Because all these people
B rallies all over again. Yeah.
It was like Group B rally with all these people in the road, and then they scramble out of the way at the last minute for Ocon to go through. Just crazy. The second question is, I'd like to actually know who made that call. No, I mean literally. Who
Hmm.
made the call? Was it the race director, a steward, the FIA employee, a track security person? Who made the call? That's what I
Yeah.
would like to know.
Yeah, it's tough to know. I mean, before every race weekend, professional race weekend, the photographers have to go through an orientation with whoever's running the series. Where can you go? What can you do? Safety protocols, all this stuff. So,
Mhm.
so that all the journalists should know what they can and can't do. But their job is to get the best shot, the best this, the best
Of
that. So
course.
they'll always try and maybe go where they shouldn't be going, right? Get somewhere that someone can't go. But then also remember that F1 goes from place to place to place, and they don't take everybody with them. So I'm, I would assume it's just some local person that got hired to run the gate, and I'm sure someone didn't say release the journalists.
No,
I'm sure someone just kind of opened the gate. Oh, okay, the race is
it's the
going
last
to be
lap.
over,
Yeah.
right? And on their own recognizance, but
Yeah, I don't blame the photographers at all. That was their staging area and somebody let them in there,
yeah,
and you would go in, you'd think, okay, you
yeah,
know. I think Ted Kravis was saying, well, shouldn't I think he was asking the question, should the photographers have known that Ocon, still had to make a stop? Not necessarily. If you're a
no,
photographer, you're out on the track taking pictures. You're not following who's made pit stops and who hasn't. As
right,
you're,
right.
yeah, a
You're just taking
photographer's
pictures.
working. He's
Yeah,
he or she is working.
yeah. If you're not watching the race literally, else you're
No.
missing your shot. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no. They wouldn't have known that Ocon had a pit stop remaining. The
no,
photographers wouldn't. So
no,
it's not their fault. It's the FIA, I suspect, or whoever it was that let him in there.
yeah,
But it was interesting because Stewart said, "Oh, well, we reviewed it, and we really talked to the FIA and said that shouldn't happen again." It's kind of like,
yeah,
what? So you reviewed yourself and told yourself it shouldn't happen again. Okay, got it.
yeah.
Anyway,
And it was bad.
yeah, well, and having all those years when you were out running programs at Sonoma,
Yeah.
and that brief time I was out there with you, and I, I'd watch you on those series, and when you were running the junior series and running those races
Hmm.
for the driving school, but when I watch you do all those stuff, I mean, just this is a track with some junior drivers that are going to the school that you guys are trying to coach up, and you've got a little championship within the school,
Hmm.
and you guys are taking track safety damned seriously. I
Right.
mean, hot track is a hot track, a hot pit lane is a hot pit lane, and this is at Sonoma. This isn't a
Hmm.
Formula One race.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the traveling shows there's a little chaos there,
Yeah,
getting the local hires to know what they're doing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into the race. Let's start out the very top. Let's start off with Red Bull. Sergio Perez P1, Verstappen, as in Max P2. Sergio Perez had a great weekend, Paul, with a sprint win on Saturday, then a Grand Prix win on Sunday. Fantastic weekend for the Mexican. He benefited, of course, from the safety car. That happens. People win, people lose when a safety car comes out. He was a
Hmm.
winner, and this allowed him to jump Max and Charles, take the lead. And from there, he really never looked back, never seemed under serious pressure from Max at that point. Had a terrific pace all weekend. Something about Baku. He's a two-time winner there now. He likes that.
Yeah.
He
They
likes
like
that
street
track.
circuits.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say, but no secret, Paul, as you just said, he tends to thrive on street circuits. Sergio Perez does like those sort of rhythm street circuit tracks, that he just does. Monaco is another favorite of his. This is his second win at Baku, sixth win in F1 for him.
Good
But a
for him.
great race this weekend for Sergio.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. He was flying from lap one, and I mean, I know we always kind of think Max is just going to be a slam dunk win, but watch out for Sergio in certain situations. I'm not saying over a season, Max won't have the best of him, but Sergio is just every year he's got made that gap smaller and smaller, and then sometimes it's going to be flipped on his lid when you get to a place where Sergio really really performs. Obviously he was closing in on Max anyway, right before they
Right.
pitted, and I think that put Max under pressure to want to come in for tires because he didn't want to fight off Sergio or didn't want the humiliation of Sergio actually going by him. So they did pit him. It was funny when they pitted Max under, oh, it might be a yellow. In my racing, that'd be the perfect time to call someone in. So in my head, I was like, oh, they'll probably work out well. And then in the end, you're like, oh no, there's a Formula One. That is very, very bad. So put Max behind, and Sergio gained the position, but just because he gained that position doesn't mean it's his race. And he still had to put in lap after lap of perfect laps to keep Max Verstappen at bay, out of DRS zone. And that's exactly what he did. Phenomenal drive. Yeah,
it was a great drive. Yeah, for Max, he had a tough Saturday with he had got clouded by George there on Saturday, and then on Sunday the team called him in when Nick DeVries stopped his car, and in hindsight, it brought out the safety car, and this left Max basically he got screwed by the safety car because he had just stopped. So in that case, he was jumped by Perez and Leclerc during that safety car, and that put him back. No, he did fight back though, up to P2, and then as you said, Chase spent the rest of the race trying to chase Sergio down. The team thought that Nick was going to back the car away from the wall and get it going again, and to be honest with you, I did too, because I didn't see
his wheels
damage.
were kind of like
except afterwards I saw that the front left track rod was broken, but I didn't initially see that when they went to a shot.
Yeah,
well, if you look at it, the car looked okay, but
it looked okay. But when you actually looked at where the toe was, it was both sides, severe toe in at that point. So
he
to just clouded that wall.
He was struggling with his rears, and Sergio was closing in. So they'd already been talking about boxing, and they did. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Would I expect Red Bull to get something like that wrong? Maybe not, but on the flip side of it, I don't know how they break that. By the time they realized that the red flag came out, or that he had crashed and that he wasn't going to get going, and by the time Max got to the pit entry, I don't know how much time they would have had. And we're talking about a matter of seconds. Whatever it was a matter of seconds. Whether it
pit in, pit out.
Yeah, whether it was 2 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever it was, we're talking about a matter of seconds. So that's a pretty tough call.
Yeah.
The upside is, this is Nick DeVries down at AlphaTauri, the sister team. It's nice to know that Red Bull didn't quickly just call down there and said, hey, are you guys staying on track or are you bringing it back? That would have solved it. So at least they're not doing inside baseball.
That'd be tough to have that kind of quick communication. But yes, it's. I mean, I think Sergio did kind of have a slight upper hand on Max this weekend, and he said that Max was saying he was trying everything to adjust in the car to get the car to his liking. He still didn't have it there. I think he was a little out of sorts this weekend. I mean, just from what he was talking about before, I read some stuff where he was talking about, well, if F1 stays with all this, qualifying and extra races, I'm not sure I want to be around. And then he's really deep amongst the worst scenario here with his a sprint race, 2 qualifying, only 1 practice. I think it's just not his cup of tea. I wouldn't be mine either. So I'm sure he can get his head around it, but I think it's just kind of throwing him just a little bit off where he's not the best Max can be this weekend, and Sergio pounced on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he had the measure of Max pretty much all weekend. I think Max was distracted. And like you, I don't think he liked this weekend. I mean, this left, he said, as much after the sprint qualifying, and left Damon Hill bad mouthing him and calling him, a sore loser and all that, which I thought was a really weird screed for Damon Hill to go on about Max. I mean, if you were ever wondering how Damon Hill feels about Max, boy, you found out this weekend. Impartiality much? That was pretty bad. But, it is a grind for all that racing and qualifying and all that good stuff. And I saw some people, Max, when he was talking about how he wouldn't be interested in all this and all the travel and everything.
And it's not being lazy, but it's the intensity of a race weekend is exhausting, and bringing yourself up to that level and performing at that level, it takes a lot out of you. But if you don't get a chance to take a break, it beats you down. I mean, you know, I know we do a lot of races. I'm starting to get the feel it myself, right? But the beat down on the mechanics and the morale in the team can also be infectious, you know, positive and negative.
Yeah.
And I think I've got to imagine a lot of these teams are having to try and deal with this stuff because the budgets are crunched. So that means you can't just have like two teams alternating, right? So you're being squeezed on budget. So that means you're squeezed on personnel count. So these people are having to do more work for a longer time, be away from home. It's a beatdown, and just I'm sure Formula One, Liberty, you know, just add another race, we'll make another 40 million. There's an end point to it, you know. And as Max said before the weekend, it was like, you know, I love driving in Formula One, but it's, you know, there may come a point where it's too much, and I'll just go do something else, you know.
Yeah, he was taking a lot of incoming over that, and people saying, "Oh, Wang, you don't like travel." You know, well, you know, if I made the kind of money you would, I wouldn't mind. Well, okay, wait a minute there, tough guy. I understand your point. Yes,
Yeah,
Max gets a lot of money. Lewis even gets more money. And if you think about it, at the end of the day, a couple things. To your point about the emotional, physical toll it takes, that's why Nico Rosberg left.
yeah,
Because he knew what it was going to take to mentally to beat Lewis Hamilton, and he didn't want to put himself through that again, right?
yep.
And he said, "I'm out."
And
He
and that's a
tapped
lot of
out.
reason why drivers literally just stop.
Yeah, they're just
That's
tap
why
out.
Ricardo isn't here right
Yeah,
now. I'm sure he could have found something. That's why Mark Webber stopped when he did, you know.
yeah.
There's
Vettel.
a lot of
Yes.
yeah. I mean, he kind of stroked it out for a while, but some drivers just literally, I can't do anymore. That's it.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not necessarily even that they physically can't do it anymore. It's like they mentally can't do it anymore, and they know they cannot. And because as I said, it takes a lot to bring yourself up to that level. And if you know you can't get there, then why be there at all?
Yeah, and the other thing I want to point out when you're talking about, well, if I made that kind of money, I travel and all that. But keep in mind, though, folks, that a driver like Lewis Hamilton, Max, Nico, if you will, George Russell, pick one, Charles Leclerc. These drivers have been driving and racing since they were 4, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
And they've been karting. Now, you know, Lewis was traveling all over Europe with his dad karting with Nico Rosberg and his dad every single weekend, driving somewhere, living in hotels, going to kart races, you know, going to double headers. And, you know, it's been nonstop traveling for these guys for their whole lives,
Yeah.
right? Up to this point. So at some point, it doesn't really matter about how much money they make or don't make. It's the sacrifice that a kid from Stevenage put in. And when I always think of Lewis, you know, close to his 40s, I mean, if I'm Lewis, I don't see, after all the sacrifice and traveling and all that stuff, keeping his head in the game. I wouldn't blame him a bit if he just after this year said, "Ah, man, I'm done. I'm going to do something else."
Yeah.
Wouldn't stun me at all. It's the same for Max. And you know, the thing I will say about Max, if you haven't seen or read some stories about his childhood, it may unpack a little bit about his personality. If you find his personality to be very kind of cool, maybe prickly a little bit, you go and read some stuff on, how do I say this politely? His dad wasn't a model citizen.
No.
Okay, or a
Yes.
model father. This is the dad that when Max screwed up at a kart race as a kid, on the way home in the middle of nowhere, they stopped at a gas station to get gas, and he made Max get out and walk and left him. Now, who does that to your kid because you're mad because he screwed up, right?
Right.
And it's hard to be a kid like Max and not come out of that unscathed, you know? So I'm not going on a grand apology tour for Max. I'm just saying there's a lot more to this for any of those drivers than what meets the eye.
Yeah.
So have some patience with them. Let's see. Let's get to. Should we do Ferrari?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it. Charles Leclerc P3, Carlos Sainz P5. Despite having pole position for the sprint race and the Grand Prix, Charles didn't have the long run pace to hold the Red Bulls off, and he knew it and said as much going into the sprint race. If there was a bright sign, though, Paul, over the weekend, it was that Ferrari did seem to be a little less hard on their tires than previous races that we've seen so far this year. That could be track specific, of course. It could have flattered the Ferrari here, but we'll know more in Miami and different tracks. But at least they did have some decent pace, and they were quick enough. Charles said it was an incredibly lonely race, the loneliest race he's had, but that the team need to work on tire management, race pace. At the end of the day, though, he hung in there, brought the car home in third on both Saturday and Sunday. So there was a nice points haul for him, and he held off Alonso in the Mercedes. So, there's that.
There is that.
Yes. You got that to look for.
With Ferrari, Charles is dedicated to Ferrari. Sorry, my dog's attacking me here.
Oh.
Get back, dog. Back.
Attack. Get him.
Yeah, sorry. I was a little distracted. Charles loves Ferrari. Charles is everything about Ferrari. And Ferrari have... they got a long way to go, don't they?
They do.
And everyone has a long way to go. But I think Charles is doing an exceptional job in the car, even though it's never going to kind of show it out in the race results right now.
Yeah. He did have that unforced error hitting the wall, but I think he's trying to do so much in that car that it just...
Yeah, I mean, the pressure's on internally, externally in Ferrari, and it's just everything he's doing everything he can do, and the only way it's ever going to turn around is Ferrari give him the car that he can actually sit back a little bit and have a little bit of capacity left,
right?
Be able to do the best job that he can,
right?
Sorry, dogs.
That's true. Well, dogs, people love dogs. Have you seen the podcast with Grace's cats on them? Because they're all like up in
Isn't
the
that every podcast at this
pretty
point?
Much. Yeah. So don't feel bad about your dog.
Okay.
Carlos seemed a little less hooked up all weekend, if I'm honest. He said all weekend that he absolutely lacked confidence under braking in the car for whatever reason. He just did not feel good in that car all weekend, lacked pace, lost out to Alonso during the safety car session, and then nearly got picked off by Hamilton there late in the race. So Carlos not on something either.
I would say this is epitomizing his season, not just his race, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what are we going to do about Carlos? I mean, he seems to be slipping back rather than moving forward.
How do you solve a problem like Carlos?
Yeah, I don't know what to do, because if he doesn't stop closing that gap and doing what Perez has been doing for Max, then he may not have a long future in Ferrari.
Yeah, I agree. He's got to be thereabouts, and he's not, unfortunately. No,
and I don't know what he needs to do to fix that either.
I think with Carlos, it's in a lot of ways, as I look at Carlos, I don't think it's a racecraft issue. I don't think it's a skill issue. I think for Carlos, it's just a consistency issue. I think if he was consistent, race in, race out, more consistently on pace.
Well, consistently on pace, yes.
Yeah.
But he's still lacking. He's lacking that 2-3 tenths, and then add that up. I mean, look how far back he was from Charles in this race. It's crazy.
But there'll be races where he'll damn near win, and he'll beat Charles, be it either in qualifying or the race. And then there's other races where he's quite a bit off Charles, and it's just that peak and valley inconsistency that I think is hard to get a measure around, because I think, when he's really on it and puts the bit between his teeth, I mean, he's a damn good driver.
No, he is a damn good driver,
but
he is. He can be very fast. Consistency maybe so, but he's definitely struggling even to get to that point where he does shine ever right now.
Yes, this season I would agree.
Yeah, this season is the biggest struggle I've seen.
He had moments last year, but I think I agree with you.
Yeah.
Aston Martin, the team with the same color as your team. We have young Lance Stroll, the Canadian P7, and young and effervescent Fernando Alonso in P4. It seemed like a Red Bull issue last year, but this year both Aston Martins at this race were having trouble with their DRS not working. You remember last year that mystery DRS thing wasn't working, and we go to race and they back there fiddling around with it.
You got a set screw? Who's got a 7 here?
Hey, who's got a cotter pin? Anybody got a cotter pin? Okay. And they're just back there tinkering around, and then Sky Sports said, "No, we got it fixed. It's fixed." And they get out there and it was like flapping around. It was like, you don't have it fixed. What the hell? How hard can that be? Put a cotter pin in the damn thing, right? And so anyway, come to find out a year later, they got the most dominant DRS ever invented by Adrian Newey. And that's what they were doing last year. And now this weekend, shockingly, Aston Martin had all kinds of trouble getting their DRS working. So I'm forecasting that by this time next year, Aston Martin should have an awesome DRS.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyway, they were struggling with their DRS. Makes you wonder. Fernando benefited from the safety car, as I mentioned, managed his tires really well for most of the race, held in there at the last, was about 3 to 4 seconds behind Leclerc. Then in the waning laps, really tried to put the hammer down, did close it down to just a couple seconds, but just ran out of laps. He said that when they were asked Fernando about it, he said, well, actually, I think Ferrari was lucky. He said, I think they actually performed better on the hards than they thought they would. And because their performance in the hards and they weren't having graining like they were on their mediums, he goes, I think they actually could run pretty well on the hards. So he said,
I'm not sure that's luck exactly.
I don't know either. Yeah, it's just I'm just telling you what Fernando said.
Their car was faster, so they were lucky it was faster. But
it was much faster than us on the straights. It had in sectors 2 in the twisty bit, and they didn't have graining on the hards.
I think overall what he's trying to say is the hard was more resilient, and it was quite a step more resilient than the medium. I mean, pace-wise, fairly close, but resilience and longevity.
Look at Hülkenberg.
The hard was amazing.
Yeah,
right? I mean, that was just one step, so pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I think the Aston likes to see the pounce on cars when their tires deg. We saw what Alonso was doing, jumping on Hamilton. He started sliding around, and Alonso was still just sliding through those corners just fine. So the Aston seems to have a bit of an advantage with tire deg. So with the mediums, it was really apparent when the tires started going away. But the hards didn't seem to once you'd pitted deep enough into the race. So the advantage Aston has over Ferrari was negated. So that's why what they expected was going to happen didn't actually happen for Alonso. But still, stunning speed from this team and driver.
Right. Yeah, it was. Lance had a decent start and restart, but then he glanced the wall. Didn't have a lot of confidence in the car either, he said. And he finished no higher than P7. Despite Lewis getting past him, Lance was able to hold George off for P7, so that was good. The interesting thing was the teamwork that was going on. Fernando radiating setup changes in his bias and saying, hey, tell Lance to, use my setting. It's working well for me. And Lance going, hey, tell Alonso I'm not going to attack him, because we're both in the same game. And I think that was good.
You can tell those guys used to go on holidays together, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a kind of gentler Alonso.
It is a kinder.
He's not trying to kill his temmate, which is something he's always tried to do.
Right. Yeah, it's an older, wiser Fernando. So anyway, not all was lost. P4, P7, not bad.
Yeah. No, not bad. And I think Lance, probably should have been a little bit higher.
I think so too. And I think if you pressed him, I think he would say, yes, I kind of blew it, touched the wall, blew the, letting, Hamilton get by me. And
Right. And he really hit that wall. He hit it harder than De Vries did.
Yeah.
But he just hit it because if you see how the walls go, because they're straight walls, they're not curved walls.
Yeah.
That there's a little corner to them, and that's exactly what took De Vries's car out. But Lance hit the wall harder, but he hit it on the flat side of it, so he was able to get away with it.
More of a glance
blow. Yeah, he was very lucky there. Yeah.
Yeah, he really was. Speaking of Mercedes,
Get down.
you have Lewis Hamilton P6, George Russell in P8. Lewis, like Max, got caught out by the safety car. Unfortunately, this dropped him down to what, P11, P13 in that range. That was unfortunate in midfield, but he put the bit between his teeth, really put the hammer down, managed to put a great drive in, back up to P6. Thought it was a good drive. Even though his teammate jumped him at the safety car too, still managed to get right back around George. So that was good. I thought it was a good drive all the way around. And he's, Lewis said, I'm just counting the days till we get the upgrades. But yeah,
well, I hope
sure
it's a better up there. I hope it has a better power, more power than the McLaren upgrade did. But
yeah. But all things given, though, I thought it was a good drive. He was thereabouts, kind of all weekend in that range. I think would prefer not to have had that Aston get up there, but anyway, not all's lost.
Yeah, not all's lost. I mean, I think he maximized the car for sure. I'm sure he was more than happy to pass Russell in that one moment. I bet he was really smiling at that point.
I bet he was.
When Russell had that bad restart.
Like, George who?
Yeah. Get me a load of this. So I think he maximized it. I don't think that car was awfully strong.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, without a lot of practices to try and fix these things, it's going to be a tougher hill to climb here on out. So they're going to have to do homework back at the factory, but also try and make the most of those races where they do have a lot of practices to really try and vet some stuff out.
Yeah. George had a ragged weekend, had that clash on Sunday with Max, then started behind Lewis in the race. Then he did gain from the safety car, though. Jumped Lewis, so things were looking good. Then he had a bad restart. That let Lewis get by him. At the end of the day, George was pretty disappointed just in himself. I mean, he was realistic about it. He wasn't, oh, poor me, but he was saying, just kind of disappointed in my performance. He said, I had a bad start. Lewis got back around. Wasn't happy about it. Toto said that they headed in the wrong direction on the sole practice session. And by the time they realized that the cars were already in Parc Fermé condition for the rest of the weekend, I'm thinking, well, Toto, you voted for this. I to be honest with you, I'm surprised you did, because I think a lot of teams struggle with that. So anyway, that was unfortunate. So let's talk about the George and Max incident on Saturday.
Okay.
I think you and I are aligned, but I'll let you expand on it. I think we both felt like it was just kind of a racing incident. It was two guys holding position.
Yeah.
It was straightforward.
I think it's pretty straightforward. Both of them had the right to be where they were. You never know in these situations which is going to be the best place to be. Obviously, Max was kind of stuck on the outside because Russell got a run on the inside, but Max wasn't just going to kind of let him by. There's no reason to. You never know what's going to happen on the next corner or the corner after that may come in your favor, and you don't know if the inside guy is going to have trouble getting the power down. You keep the position. So there's definitely, just because a guy's on the inside of you, you don't just let them go. There's always a reason to fight. Certainly on street circuits, you really bottle up in there, so you can pinch someone down on the exit so they can get a poor getaway out of the corner and regain that position. So Max had to have every right to fight for the corner, as did Russell, and one guy prevailed out of the other. And there was a light touch. Unfortunately, some of these parts you hit them, it can do some damage, but you got to get close to other cars to pass them. You don't. Everyone's not standing 20 feet away from you. Sometimes you get close, and sometimes you bump, and sometimes something gets clipped, and that's just the way it is. If you can't race like that, and if anyone's going to get, I don't think Max had a right to get squawked at Russell or anyone to get squawked at Max for fighting for the position. I think it was just that in the heat of the moment. Max doesn't like it. That's okay. He'll get over it.
Yeah, I think so too. And there was there's a YouTube video of both of their responses in the media pen after the race. George was surprised Max was upset. Max was a little surprised George kind of felt like it was no big deal. But, at the end of the day, I'll tell you what the thing that I noticed is you've got a lot of people immediately jumping on George for just plowing into him. I don't think that. I
which
didn't see
wasn't the
that at all.
case.
That wasn't the
No.
case. George went in there. He may have had cold tires and drifted out a little more than he wanted to, but he was trying to make the pass.
Mhm.
I commend him. I think it was an aggressive move, and you guys know I like aggressive drivers, and I, I, I absolutely thought it was great that George tried it. On the
Yep.
flip side, so I'm not blaming George. I mean, he saw that opportunity and tried to take it. Good on him.
Yeah.
On the Max front, then you've got all these people that are, going ballistic on Max. And here's what I want you guys to realize: I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, he was on the outside," and everyone knows if you're on the outside, you're screwed. Well, now wait a minute. Wait a minute. Just listen to yourselves for a moment and go back the last 2 or 3 years and tell me the times that you said when Max dove down the inside of somebody and they touched or he forced somebody out wide, when you said, well, it's not Max's issue. If you're on the outside, you're screwed. You should just checked up, because you're on the outside and everybody knows being on the outside is a recipe for disaster. That's not the case at all. And certainly when Lewis took the inside of Alex Albon and punted him twice, he was penalized for that. So it's not a foregone conclusion that anybody on the outside just is an idiot and they should just immediately hit the brakes. That's just silly. As Max pointed out, he was trying to pass me. I wasn't trying to pass him. I'm on the outside. I tried to give him enough room, and he came over and touched me. That's the way he sees it, So that's why I don't think either driver is really wrong in this. I think Max was there. George is trying to get by him. Max tried to hold the position, tried to give some room. George did too. He probably had a little bit of front, understeer. Who knows? But they touched, and it's a first lap racing incident in my mind.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah. That's how I saw it. Let's talk about McLaren, shall we? Well, why not?
Nice, Ron.
You had Lando Norris, P9, Oscar Piastri, who had a dippy tummy all weekend long, Paul.
Wonder what he ate.
Struggling. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
That is brutal.
Maybe he had a dodgy curry.
Yeah.
Oh, he's Australian. It wouldn't have been curry.
The Baku belly.
Yes, the Baku belly. I think that's what he had. McLaren brought some upgrades, or what I'm calling Zach grades. Because Zach's, determined to fix the problems.
He's down there drawing some stuff out.
Yeah, he's down there. He's got a X-Acto, and he's kind of shaving some carbon fiber off down there with 400 grit sandpaper.
Stick this on. Yeah.
Yeah. Here, try that. That's how Zach rolls, man. He's a roll the sleeves up guy. Anyway, they brought some upgrades. They did seem to help. Lando, had a frustrating weekend. He was mired behind the Haas car, Nico Hulkenberg, for most of the race, and ran basically in a complete DRS train for most of the day. Finally found a gap, though, when Hulkenberg's tires effectively at this point
it died. Yeah.
Yeah, it turned into Flintstone car tires. And he was able to get around, pull distance out, and finish for a couple points, which is a good move on his part. So, and that was, I would say that they looked a little better, and they did look a little better. But I don't know if there's any reason to start getting out the fireworks and uncorking the champagne yet.
Yeah, no. And here's my question to you is, if you were McLaren, you said, let's put the upgrades on Baku. Was this before they announced that you weren't actually going to get any practice to develop your new whole process?
Would you have done
it? You wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have done it.
Why would you? Yeah.
Why would you? If you'd known beforehand, you would be like,
yeah.
Because we've always talked about it. You develop a new piece, and it does this on the wind tunnel. It does this in the CFD. You don't really know what it does till you get it on the track. And then once you get it on the track, it's not like you put the piece on, it worked, or it didn't work.
Right.
You don't know it works till you go through certain parameters on setup and aerodynamic setup to know if that piece actually works. It's not like, as I said, it's not just you put it in, it gives you 10 horsepower. It's a part that's part of a whole profile of a whole car. Right. And you have to know what that piece is doing and how to maximize its potential. And that doesn't happen in one practice session. That happens with doing data, with using those practice sessions, sticking those bit apparatus on the cars and get it run around a little bit and see what those pieces are actually doing. And they didn't have the opportunity to do that at Baku at all. So that's why if you were going to choose to bring upgrades, that was not the track to do it at, because you're not really going to get to understand these new parts at all, or even get close to maximizing what they could give you.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, you got to bolt them on and see, and run some laps.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Cisco business acquisition model. It's like Cisco, they were always accused of bolt-on technology when they acquire different companies. They're like, well, let's buy Tandberg, video conferencing. I see the P&L. It looks great. The balance sheet, it should on paper work, but you won't know until you bolt them onto your Cisco platform and your network switches to figure out if it works. And lo and behold, it works. Oscar had a clash with Albon at the start that hindered his progress forward, managed to close down to the top 10, but just finished just outside of the points. Looking not bad for a guy who's been sick all weekend, if I'm honest.
Not so
the
bad.
team said that they should have started the year where they are now. With these
so they're
upgrades.
behind.
So, so you're saying you're behind? Yes, they are.
Every team would say that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the only thing I heard over the weekend wasn't like, "Yep," and next weekend's upgrade should be even better. What I heard this last weekend was like, "Yeah, and the next raft of upgrades will be after the summer break." And I was like, "Oh,
ooh,
that's harsh." That's harsh.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about AlphaTauri. Nick DeVries, a DNF. Yuki Tsunoda, P10. Same result as Australia. A DNF for Nick and a P10 for Yuki, believe it or not. Nick,
team leader, Yuki Tsunoda.
Yes, team leader and seasoned veteran, Yuki Tsunoda. Yes, the Nick is beginning to show you and I, Paul, why Mercedes chose to pass on their option for him.
Yes.
And no one is more stunned than I am, because it's a real shame. I really thought he would do much better than this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we can make excuses. Oh, we're still at all the flyaway races and this and that, but
I don't have any.
Yeah, I don't got nothing for him right now. I said it before the season started. I said I think DeVries is going to wipe the floor with.
I did too.
Yuki. Not very wrong so far.
Toto knew something we didn't.
Yeah, I don't think it's over yet, but I think he's going to get closer and he's going to have his moments, but definitely not coming in and just bulldozing his way in as number one.
I know.
Yeah.
See, I think Toto was pulling a whole draft day. They passed on Bo Callahan there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie with Kevin Costner in it.
Okay. I believe you.
Yeah.
Probably football.
It's an American football thing. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't understand.
No, I did see Rudy. I just don't remember it.
Hey, did you see Man City took the top of the table?
Yeah. Well, at least someone's beaten Arsenal, which is
now Arsenal.
Man City doesn't make it much easier for me, but yeah.
No. and then I had trouble finding West Ham in the top 10. I had to go.
Hey! We're too busy winning games in Europe. Don't you worry about the Premiership.
Forever Bubbles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, but hey, how about Newcastle? They're up there too.
No kidding, right? Yeah, good for them. They were in dire straits not so long ago.
Know. Yeah.
It helps to have an influx of billions of dollars to your team, I
guess that
does help in Formula One and in football.
Yeah,
but, yeah,
I guess that has. And I think Bournemouth is going to survive.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, good for them. You know anybody who lives over in Bournemouth?
I don't.
That's probably better.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Is
wasn't
anywhere
allowed
near
out
Kent?
of the Essex borders. Not allowed out.
Essex put a wall to keep you in from
Yeah.
terrorizing the rest of London.
Yeah.
Let's see, where are we? We are at Williams. Alex Albon, P12, Logan Sargent, P16. Albon clashed with Piastri, as I mentioned, off the line, but his car was okay. Spent a lot of time in a DRS train, which is a shame because both cars actually in qualifying trim, they look good all weekend long over a single lap. And in qualifying, I thought, oh man, Williams is going to show up here, and with superior straight line speed, they could nip a point out of this weekend. You never know if there's a little attrition ahead of him and safety car,
Yeah.
etc. I was hoping that Alex might get a point. Didn't happen though. Unfortunate. And then Logan boxed during the safety car, got screwed on that deal. Even
Yeah,
though he did box.
if you're in like the mid pack and do the same
Yeah,
thing Max did, you lose
you
many
lose.
places. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that was pretty tough. Such a shame because over that one lap, Paul, I think they were really quick. They just need to figure out how to make their long run race
Hmm.
pace as good as their qualifying pace, and that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But Alex did say that he felt really good. He says, "I feel like I'm becoming kind of one with this car. I'm really kind of getting its personality. I'm understanding what it wants to do, what it's capable, and what I can't ask it to do, sort of thing."
Hmm.
Yeah, he felt pretty comfortable in that car. I think that's a good place to be, and he
Oh
felt like
yeah.
there's a lot of performance he thinks in that car that they just kind of haven't tapped in. He's not suggesting he's going to go beat Red Bull. I think what he's saying is that this is a decent platform, and I think there's more performance in this car if we really work at it.
Yeah, no, that is a good sign. Certainly being understanding a car and being at one with it will really help the development of it, because
Hmm.
that then you, by the seat of your pants, know when something's working or not with upgrades and changes, etc. And you know where the sweet spot is. So no, that's really good to hear from Alex, and
Yeah,
good to hear for the win. I mean, yeah, they didn't get the points or whatever, but at the beginning of the season, we didn't think they'd even be, even
yeah,
even in the hunt. So I think
right.
still they're overachieving for where they are. So both drivers are doing a good job.
Yeah, agreed.
Sargent's doing a good job, even though maybe didn't get close to Albon because of those situations. But I think Williams is on a positive note, and yeah, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I do too. I'm really excited for that team, and hope they do well. Let's go to Haas. Nico Hulkenberg, P17, Kevin Magnussen, P13. Kevin bumped Bottas at the start, had front wing damage. That kind of hobbled him for the rest of the afternoon. Said that the wing that they have, this is an interesting comment, Paul. He said that the rear wing that they have is really good with no DRS activated. But
Mm.
when he activates DRS, it really has no impact.
Oh.
And he said it was really difficult
Mm.
because when they're behind trying to make passes, um, it's not really giving them that big boost to get around. But when there was no DRS, like right after the safety car, a lap or two or whatever it is,
Yeah.
when there's no DRS, the rear wing seems to work quite a bit better.
Huh.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
that's an interesting conundrum for Gunther to figure out.
Yeah,
And
which probably leads to the DRS trains, right? Just means it's pretty
yeah, yeah,
efficient unto its own. That the drag is, you
yeah.
know, minimal when you open the wing. So
Yeah, yeah, right, right. So I don't know if Gunther, he's busy on his
book
book
tour.
signing tour. Yeah,
Hmm.
so I don't know if he's got
Or
time to
eating
figure it out
grapes with Mario
with Mattia.
and Mattia.
Let's see. Hulk started from the pit lane, given that they were caught out by the lack of practice, just like Toto said the Mercedes was. They had the setup wrong, and so they took the penalty, started from the pit lane, and they made the setup changes to match Kevin's car, and he did a lot better. He started on the hards, went pretty much the damn, the entire of the whole race,
Hmm.
practically. It became a DRS train, held up the McLarens, which sucked for them. But did a great job in holding a lot of people off, driving defensively, and finishing in P17 because he had to box. Truth be known,
Yeah.
not a bad drive.
No. I think, they didn't really have a car to get really in there. So I think they rolled the dice. It could have come out perfectly for them if there
Hmm.
was another yellow or whatever. So it was definitely worth the try. It wasn't a stupid idea,
Yeah,
because either way, they're not scoring points, right? So the only option they have is to try and find up some strategy, some scenario, and Baku is a pretty good place for it to have an
yeah, yeah.
incident, another yellow flag that you roll dice and give it a go. And yeah, it didn't pay off this time, but any other day it could have done.
Yep. Alpine Pierre Gasly P14, Esteban Ocon P15. Gasly had a tough weekend. He had a fire, burnt
Yeah,
up his car. The team rebuilt the car, then he promptly crashed it.
that was bad.
Mm,
That's no way to. I mean, obviously it wasn't his fault. He caught on fire, but yeah,
yeah.
you go all that trouble and then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you throw it in the wall. Not good.
Yeah, his race unraveled when he boxed early for the hard, but then he got hung out to dry for the safety car. came out. He then boxed again. I think he was one of the few people that tried the two-stopper. That didn't work. And ends up down in P14. So not a lot to report there. Esteban made his way into the points despite starting in pit lane. He started on hards like Hulk, did run the entirety of the race, boxed on the very last lap as Sergio Perez was crossing the finish line, nearly ran over a bunch of photographers at the entrance of pit lane. Then dropped down to P15.
Yeah. Crappy race, basically.
Crappy race. You know, Paul, to me, it's shocking how far off the pace this team is in Baku.
Right now, in Baku, yeah.
Brutal.
I mean, they've had some decent races this year, so I don't know what the issue is there, but it was they wish to forget this race for sure. But you do have to find out why.
Yeah.
If you just go, oh well, we'll just get them at the next one, that doesn't really work in Formula One. You've got to analyze the heck out of it to figure out why weren't we where we should be.
Yeah, it's like all their press release. Yeah, we'll just have to look at that. I'm not quite sure what was going on, but I'm looking forward to Miami. Well, how about figuring why you sucked in Baku?
Yeah.
Speaking of sucking in Baku, Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas P18, Zhou Guanyu, a DNF. Bottas clashed with Magnussen at the start, struggled from there. 3 pit stops, Paul, and massive tire wear for Valtteri. He was in Nowheresville.
Hasn't he had that? Didn't he have that problem in another race this year?
Yeah.
I feel like he did. I can't remember.
Was it Australia?
I think so. I can't remember, but I know they had the same issue where that's not good news for them.
No, going backwards. Joe retired the car. Yeah, the engine was getting super hot. The temperatures are rising, so they had to shut it off. Again, shocking how far this team was off the pace in Baku.
Yep, absolutely. But with as we said, there really isn't a back row in Formula One right now, so each team is going to kind of have its turn being the sucky team of the week show.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. It could be Haas, and then it's Williams, it's Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri. It's, everybody's going to take a turn. In the hot seat in the back.
Yep.
Unfortunately, you're either hero or zero. Let's hand out some awards. That's what we do on this podcast. First awards, move the race.
We'll do it live.
Yes, we will. All right, Paul, move the race. Who did you have?
I went for Alonso on Sainz.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Alonso is just on it right now.
He's a machine, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's it's so difficult to do the unexpected in Formula One, but if you're ever going to throw the dice and bet on somebody to do it, it's Alonso, and he just jumped. Sainz was unaware that anyone would even try it at that moment in time, and Alonso was very aware that the gap opened up, and he went for it, and he made it work, and it was an awesome move. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's all the Taylor Swift, rumors going around about Taylor Swift and Fernando and all that, and so my youngest daughter's a big T Swift fan.
Okay, and, I didn't even know about these rumors. I'm not up.
Oh yeah. There's all these rumors that the two are hooked up. But,
wow. Okay.
And so it's pretty funny. You're watching all these Swifties trying to figure out who the hell Fernando Alonso is. They have no clue, except my daughter does. It's like, well, he's a 2-time world champion with Renault. He's involved in Spygate. He was at McLaren with Lewis. Yeah, I know who Fernando is, and she's become like one of the only Swifties that know who Fernando is.
The Swifties surround her, and
it's like, do tell us more.
Yeah, tell us more.
So instant F1 clout in the Swiftie world. So if you're an F1 fan and you're also be a Swiftie, go wade around in the Swiftie waters and you have instant street cred. Let's see. Let's go to Donkey of the Race.
We'll do it live.
All right, Paul. Donkey of the Race. Who's it go to?
I'm giving it to Nick DeVries, I'm afraid.
Oh, sorry, big man. Turn in your jacket. You're done.
Yeah.
That's music from Hell's Kitchen.
Pack your knives and leave.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Not good. That's not good. I'm going to give it the FIR FOM for the changes in the race weekend format.
Oh, well, yeah. Wish I'd have thought of that one. That's well deserved.
Yeah. Like
Group donkeys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't like it. Go away. Stop it.
Stop
Stop
it.
being silly.
Stop it. Stop it. Too silly. Godboard box. You were lucky. We got evicted from our hole in the ground. We had to go live in a lake. All right. Final award. Drive of the race.
Get down. Get down.
Get in there, Lewis.
Oh, yeah. Drive of the race, Paul. Who did you give it to? Same guy I did.
Sergio. Yeah.
Yes, that's who I gave it to. Sergio.
He's not didn't have to make, I mean, he did have to make a pass out there, but yeah, the intensity of the battle with him, Max, cannot be underestimated.
No.
Lap after lap. Don't make a 10th mistake, keep him away.
That's
Tough
right.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Sergio fan. If you go back and listen to our 2011 Monaco review, you will hear me wax poetic about Sergio's debut and how awesome he was on street circuits on that first time he drove in Monaco, and I was raving about him and just thought it was fantastic and how good he was there, and how awesome it was to. I was waxing poetic about the resurgence, the memories of the Rodriguez brothers from Mexico. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. I had press too, yes. Let's do some mailbag real quick.
You've got mail.
First up, Paul, Miles asked this: with another new sprint race format and discussions on more radical changes in the future, it seems as though F1 is suffering from an identity crisis. Personally, I think change can be good, provided that you maintain core tenets of the sport. What do you believe are the non-negotiable for F1 tenets, i.e., what must F1 maintain as they strive to capture the attention of the old guard and the DTS crowd? That's the magic question, is it not?
Yeah, I think we kind of spoke about that. Obviously calm the hell down.
Yeah.
Stop just throwing different stuff at everything. I mean,
right.
I say you keep the technology as a major part and technology evolution. Don't just make it a spec car series where no one's allowed to change anything. You just keep racing week after week. That's the difference in F1, right? That's what I fell in love with when I was a kid, and that's definitely something you don't want to take away. I think they need to definitely keep the race numbers down to make those events actually special and not just literally burn everybody out. Keep F1 more like it was and stop trying to make it something it isn't.
Yeah, that's the key. I think when you get too far out of your own sandbox, you start messing up the yard. And I think they should. I think there are some things, certainly the technology, the team. See, and Miles, for my part, I still think practice is needed. I still think those are good opportunities to really unpack the sport. I think creating, as Paul mentioned earlier in the cast also, I think instead of monkeying around with the race and format and say, okay, well, what's working good? Well, everybody seems to polling, everybody seems to like qualifying. All right, let's just do it twice. You know, it's a cheap parlor trick. I'm sorry. You know, it's like, burying the top card. You need to think about it more than this. These cheap parlor tricks is insulting to veteran fans, and it's going to grow really weary to new fans pretty quick. So you need to create stickiness within the sport, and the way to do that is to get fans emotionally, which the Drive to Survive fans are now, but also intellectually invested in the sport.
And keep it going. Keep
it going.
The weekend's going. I mean, no one. It's like the Olympics. There's so many examples. The Olympics. You show the girl skiing down the hill and winning gold. Oh, okay. But you develop the story. You know who these people are, where they come from, how did they get there. That is an intrinsic part of the sport and one of the most interesting parts that drew people to it recently anyway. So.
So I think they need to do that. Let's see. Next, Chuck asks, so after safety car, lead car decides when to restart. Cars directly behind can see the restart. How do the cars in the back know when the leader has restarted? Is it displayed on the wheels, signs on the side of the track, radio communication? Well, what's that?
All of it.
Yeah. So I know that when the safety car comes in and gets to the safety car line, the track will go green.
Mhm.
But that's not necessarily when the cars start. So the drivers know when the track is green and the race has officially restarted, but they have to stay behind that lead car until they cross the start finish line, right? And so I do think there's probably spotters telling them when people start to get on it. And you
Oh, yeah.
physically see it too in the cars. And it's a bit of a concertina effect in reverse, right? It's
Right.
all the cars start pulling out and you can sense it and you go.
Yeah, you try and figure out what the leaders are doing, but you're not trying to pass the leader. If you're at the back of the pack, you're just trying to pass the next person ahead of you.
Yeah.
So you're trying to, yes, you're keeping an eye on when the acceleration begins, and you're backing off and you want to get a run on somebody. So you're hoping that you can time it so that you're accelerating while they're backing off, because there's a lot of to and froing going on on the restarts. You're braking, you're warming your tires up, you're weaving, and then all of a sudden someone stops weaving and they just hit the throttle. So it's a judgment call by the driver. Is really an intrinsic part of seeing what the other drivers are doing while listening to the communication that, okay, Sergio is accelerating, the green flag drops, and all this stuff is being communicated definitely through the radio. But really, it's you against the person in front and the person behind, and you're working in that little pod, if you will, on trying to gain one position, and then you work on to the next car. But you're definitely not worrying too much about what the leader's doing.
Yeah, and just to paraphrase, I totally agree. So, Paul, if you're leading the race and I'm in P18, let's say, and I can't see the first 8 cars, the 5 cars in front of me that I can't see, to me, those are the leaders.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. And so as soon as they go, I go, because that's who I'm trying to pass. I'm not necessarily worried about the actual, Paul in the lead car in P1.
Yeah, it's good to know that's happening because it's going to get you very quickly, but it doesn't get you immediately when they start accelerating. There's obviously a concertina effect in reverse, basically, under acceleration. So
good question, Chuck. Matt, hi guys, hope you're good. Looking forward to the pod. Question regarding Max Checo in the championship battle. Do you think that Sergio is, quote, I'm assuming you're quoting me, knocking Max's feet off the desk at Red Bull, as he's been there a few seasons now and has really settled in? I can't really remember Max being beaten for pace until this season. Or is it just like Valtteri 2.0 or 3.0, where he would show up and be good for a few races, but ultimately slowly wilt and become a wingman?
Mm-hmm.
What say you, Paul?
I think it's neither, because Sergio is a different man than Bottas. I think he's never going to knock Max's feet off the desk, but he's kind of muscling his way in there where you can't be ignored. He's like the younger sibling who's not that much younger and just starting, just is there and is annoying, and but you got to tolerate him. He's one of the family, for Max, right? And there may be a time, when he beats you, the older brother, at the running race every now and again. I think he's more of a thorn in Max's side than Bottas ever could have been to Lewis. And he's demanding things for himself that Bottas probably didn't try to even demand for himself. And he's making Red Bull kind of give them to him, and giving himself more the ability to be competitive against Max, other than just accepting his fate. And I think a lot changed, with that incident that we saw at Brazil,
Yeah.
And how they kind of butted heads and disagreed, and I've got you back kind of thing. I think that their relationship between each other changed, and the relationship within the team changed. And I think to Sergio's benefit, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy fight for him, and he has to fight every day for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Christian's got more of a tiger by the tail than maybe what you give him credit for. And I know there was a lot of people teeing off on, he was trending, hashtag Horner was, and all these people saying, oh my gosh, Horner didn't say anything about, Sergio, and he's this and that, and he didn't say a thing about Sergio winning the race. And I'm like, what? Yeah, he did. Here, I'll read it to you. He said, Checo absolutely excelled today. He had the pace and really controlled the race. He benefited from the timing of the safety car, but it was a phenomenal performance from him today and all weekend. Hats off to him. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty good praise, you know.
Yeah, sounds like it.
You know,
maybe,
I mean,
maybe they just didn't display it on the in the soundboard, you know, in the
yeah,
race.
I guess not.
But we don't hear everything.
Yeah, we don't hear everything. You know, it's kind of like last year. You know, there were several times when Toto kind of played down George's success, and you know, we didn't hear anything. He may not have. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. No, do I think he's knocking Max's feet off desk? No, I don't think he is. To your point, I think he's elbowing and muscling out his place in this team. Keep in mind also, this is a contract renewal year, so there's a lot to play for here, and he's got to elbow out some room, make his presence felt, make his impact to the team felt if he wants to stay there. Why would he want to stay there? Because he's in the fastest car and he wins races occasionally, and who wouldn't want that, right? This is the old Barrichello. Is it better to be a number 2 at Ferrari who is winning everything, or is it better to be a leader at Williams who was winning nothing at the back of the grid, right? And so I think for Sergio, I think there's a lot on the line. There's a contract renewal. I think he's trying to be the older, wiser, more measured approach to this. But yeah, there's definitely some friction. But at the end of the day, Max is exceptionally quick.
Yeah, I think, you know, it'd take a lot of not mistakes, but bad luck for Max to lose a championship. But Sergio's doing it one race at a time and keeping himself in there. You never know what can happen. You know, we saw when
to your
when
point,
Rosberg
maybe Max is, you know, mentally he's getting sick of it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe for now I think he'll come back. But you know, when Lewis lost the championship to Rosberg, it wasn't just Rosberg beating him week after week. Lewis had a couple of reliability issues.
That's right.
If Max gets that, and then Sergio somehow gets a leap in points, it's very difficult for the team to then start just, you know, doing stuff for Max only again. So Sergio's making it very hard for them not to treat him like, you know, not ultimately the only championship contender to Max, and having to support that.
Yeah, and to that point, you make a great point, Paul. Maybe the idea is just to keep everything close enough to where they can't blatantly favor him and ask him to hold up traffic for Max. They're both close. You know, he's trying to force them to either, you know, just let the chips fall where they may, you know?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah, good question, though. I like that one. All right. Well, that does it for this race, Paul, but you don't get off that lightly.
What?
You've got another race to watch next weekend.
Oh, that's right.
Miami Grand Prix. That's your old stomping ground.
Prix. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Think of all the time you spent there and the bands playing out at the clubs.
My goodness. Yeah, no kidding.
You guys opening for Marilyn Manson, or did they open for you back?
No, we didn't do any Marilyn Manson. We've opened for a few people. Not Marilyn Manson. They were around at the same time, though.
I thought they were. Yeah.
Yeah, they were when we were playing, they were like another one of the bands playing. And but so I heard a lot about them at that moment in time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know who they are, but they're playing over there tonight. No, we're playing over here tonight. So
yeah. I thought they were about the same time.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's funny. Cool. All right. Well, hey, if you like this podcast, give us good ratings over at iTunes, and a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, because we could not and would not do this podcast without you. And because of that, I always upload a fresh copy commercial free for our Patreon listeners over at our Patreon site. You can go to our website on the right-hand side. It says support us. You click on that link, go to Patreon, and you can support us for as little as $1 a month. It's not asking a whole lot, is it?
No.
Do
we have to bring in Sally Struthers for crying out loud?
Yeah, TV, VCR repair. Sure, we all do. So anyway, huge thank you for that. And then, Paul, you're around next week, right?
Yes, sir. Okay. I got a weekend off, kinda. Yeah.
All right. Good. Then Paul and I will be back next week to do this all over again and review what was the Miami Grand Prix. So until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camper, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.